Vice presidential hopeful J.D. Vance's missteps continue to dog him on the campaign trail. In fact, during an interview on Fox News following the third night of the Democratic National Convention, Vance accidentally blamed Donald Trump for inflation.
It just highlights the extraordinary contrast. Donald Trump can point to 4 years of successful leadership and say, I delivered rising prices.
Oops. Now, of course, he corrected himself afterwards saying, rising wages for American workers. But, I mean, that's a whoopsie. Now, of course, here's the thing. Prices went up 9.7% during Trump's administration. Now, of course, that's a result of both COVID spending and tax cuts for the rich. Well, wait a minute. How did tax cuts fuel the inflation? Well, corporations did very, very well as a result of Trump's corporate tax cuts. They didn't have to pay as many taxes. And what did they do with the money? They gave executives huge pay raises and did massive stock buybacks to the tune of $16.4 billion. They didn't reinvest it into their companies. They didn't reinvest it into their workers. Now, during COVID, corporations used the cover of supply chain issues, which were real, and broader inflation to hike their prices up more than their higher input costs had justified. Now, that ended up making them, of course, more massive profits. They didn't have to pay more in taxes, and so they continued to pass along extra costs to the consumer, right? Now, the average family ended up seeing their incomes get crushed, and so this is your greedflation, all right? Now, according to the Groundwork Collaborative, corporate profits drove over 50% of inflation in the second and third quarters of last year. And so had taxes been higher for corporations, then there would have been less incentive for executives to squeeze as much money as they can by hiking prices from their customers far more than their input costs. Because instead of, pocketing the money or doing stock buybacks, they would have to pay more in taxes. Now, getting back to J.D. Vance, his next interview, he makes yet another whoopsie.
I just don't understand a person in American politics in 2024 who's whining about what happened to them instead of using their leadership and using their influence to make the lives of American citizens better.
Bro, you just described Donald Trump, the guy that you were running with. Because he's the one who's like always whining about, they stole the election from me, the 2020 election, witch hunt. They're coming for the witch hunt. The Bidens, Donald Trump, they're coming after Donald Trump. Joe Biden is, and the DOJ, it's the witch hunt, and you've got all the courts and the Russia. Constant, nonstop whining. Okay. Instead of actually using their influence and leadership to try to make the lives of the American citizen better. So, yeah, you just described your own, your running mate, okay? As Peter Heinlein on Twitter points out, every other day this guy makes what would be a highly accurate and insightful criticism of Trump and applies it to someone else. Oops. Brunette Bohemian adds, the call is coming from inside the house. Indeed. But finally, Vance, his final whoopsie here, or his most recent, I guess, is he had suggested that Vice President Kamala Harris's choice of Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as his running mate, or her running mate, sorry, was indicative of her having terrible judgment.
Really?
Irony is dead. I mean, come on, man. Really? You can talk about, terrible judgment in that VP pick. Bro, Donald Trump had terrible judgment when he picked you. Data from AP Votecast shows that when Walz ran for governor in 2022, he had won with a broad coalition. Women, young voters, union households, people living in the suburbs, people living in urban areas, and split the support of white voters and men. So now, this is part of the Democratic coalition that Kamala Harris is trying to build. And so far, on the campaign trail, and by the way, he won and he passed a bunch of great policy in Minnesota that's very, very popular. So now, as a result, Walz has a net positive 5% favorability rating in national polling. JD Vance, and by the way, this is before, we know a lot about the candidates, and they're still being introduced to the general public. Walz is a positive 5% and with room to grow, but JD Vance has a negative nearly 11% favorability rating. He is underwater. Okay. And by the way, the worst polling comes from Gallup, having him at negative 17% at the beginning of the month. So the poll was taken to the 1st to the 20th, and oof, what a complete and utter disaster. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe, hit the bell icon in order to get notified whenever a new video is released. And if you want to support independent, progressive media through this difficult time where it seems like everybody is shutting down, you can become a member on our YouTube page, you can become a subscriber on Facebook, or you can go to my Patreon. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf. Thank you.